Hey, it's me. Um, so I haven't been on for, I don't know, maybe a week or so. And mostly that's because I have a lot to say, but for the most part, I'm struggling to find my words. I'm struggling to figure out how to express all the things that I need to say because there's just a lot kind of churning through my head. And I want to express it, but the thing that right now that's kind of on my mind is something that happened back in the end of February. There was a we had a local tragedy here. I don't know how much it touched people around here. It Part of the tragedy in my mind is that it didn't hit people harder, I don't think, and it wasn't. Well, I'll just tell you the story about what happened. In late February, a young man from a neighboring town had some kind of a breakdown or some kind of an emotional, I don't know, some kind of an emotional crisis. And so he was brought to our town, Traverse City, and was brought to the hospital for psychiatric treatment. And I know people who have never been in a place like that may not really have any concept of what it's like or what kinds of people end up there, but anybody can end up in the psych ward or in a psychiatric hospital or whatever. Basically, if you have, you can go there because you have depression or anxiety, or you can go there because you got really, really angry, and or you just there's a whole variety of reasons that you can end up in the psych ward, that any person can end up there. Obviously people think insanity, but most of the people who go there aren't actually truly insane. Those people oftentimes end up in state facilities, but in your typical psych ward, you're usually just dealing with people who are struggling at a certain point in life, or they're struggling with something that could be depression. For most people who go there, it's depression. They're dealing with depression, and with just situations in life. And so this young man ended up being taken to the psych hospital, or to the hospital, to the psych ward. And I can't tell you how long he was there. I don't know. I wish I knew. But I can tell you that at some point, shortly after he was taken there, he disappeared. He just vanished. He was in their custody, and then suddenly he just disappeared. And they said, the family actually went to the newspaper, and so the newspaper printed the story, and just shortly after he disappeared, and the newspapers said that in the newspaper articles, it said that he had been allowed to go out on smoke break, and while he was on a smoke break, he disappeared, and he never came back after his smoke break. And also, they found his wallet on or near a pop machine, that he accidentally left behind or something. I was immediately suspicious of this because I have been through the mill. I have been in the psych ward. I have gone there for depression in most cases, and the last time it wasn't even depression, I was just not coping, very angry that I had abusive neighbors, and that they were trying to force me out of my home, and anyway, so I know the protocols and the procedures that they have to go through, and I was immediately suspicious because there are no smoke breaks. The police wouldn't know that. If they're told, yeah, he went out on smoke break and didn't come back, they're likely to believe that. But anybody who actually has gone through the process knows you aren't allowed to smoke. Now, I'm not a smoker, so it wasn't a problem for me, but, the smokers would always be complaining, because they couldn't smoke. They either had to chew nicotine gum or they had to wear nicotine patches. But there was no such thing as a smoke break. So right there, that was, that set off bells in my head. That's not right. That's not right. The article, there were a lot of things in the article, in the first articles that came out shortly after he disappeared. It didn't make sense at all. They could not be true. And the wallet being left behind didn't make sense. And then he wouldn't have possession of his wallet. They take all your stuff. I mean, they take your shoes. They even take your shoes. And they aren't going to let you carry stuff around. And they aren't going to let you out of their sight. I mean, you are locked down. You are watched like a hawk. So none of that made any sense, how he could disappear in the first place. Really, I can't think of a way that he could have gotten away. They keep you in a locked down, secured, highly watched, not only in person, but also by camera the entire time. Locked in rooms and, there's a protocol that they go through every time. I don't know how he could have ever gotten away. But not like they said. They don't let people walk away on smoke breaks and come back. Anyway, he disappeared. I was very interested and concerned, and so I called the tip line that was listed in the paper, and I called it probably 4 or 5 times during the couple of months that he was missing. Well, the response that I always got was, when I would ask about his case, have you heard anything? Well, they would say, all I can tell you is, and they all said the same thing. They were obviously given a story to tell, or, a response to give to people, and this was it. The police would say, he's not really missing. And, actually the newspaper said they only printed the newspaper actually said that too. He's not really missing, because I called them too. And they had only printed it for the sake of the family, but he wasn't really missing. And they got that from the police, obviously, and the police were saying, he's not really missing, he's an adult, he can disappear if he wants to. And then they would say, there is no case, we're not investigating this, and if you have any tips, then here is the phone number for the family. The family is handling it. Well, I spoke with his family, his mother, numerous times. This is a Native American family, and set that aside. I'm just saying this is a Native American family. Okay, but I did talk to his mother, and she didn't, she's not a police officer. She's not somebody who's dealt with this before. She didn't know what to do. She wouldn't know what to do with tips that came in. They were not concerned. They acted completely unconcerned, and they made it very clear that they were not looking for him. Why they wanted to make that so clear to callers and tell people that he wasn't really missing is beyond me. I don't know why they would want to convey that attitude so publicly, but that's exactly what they did. it ended very badly, because a couple of months later, somebody found his body, and he was floating in the bay, and he was wearing, apparently, he was only wearing boxer shorts. I'm not exactly sure what are, he didn't have on his full clothing. And I just want to interrupt myself and say I apologize that I don't explain things well. I have so much trouble trying to speak concisely, and so everything I go to say, it's hard. So I just apologize. That's part of the reason I don't talk more. It's because I'm just finding it so harder than it was before. I've had easier times talking. But anyway, so back to the story. They found him without his clothes on, and they did say, it doesn't make sense that while he was floating, his clothes would have floated off of his body or fallen off of his body. They couldn't understand that. They never have found the clothes. It makes no sense to me. They ended up classifying this as an accidental death. And I look at this and I'm like, the last thing I would think about this was that it was an accidental death. He disappeared at 11:45 p.m. So, and it was 6 degrees. I mean, he disappeared in late February. It was very, very cold. It was 6 degrees out that night as I checked it. And I cannot imagine that he would have gone out, dressed or not, I mean, even dressed in what he had on. It was very cold. I cannot imagine him stumbling to our bay, which is several blocks away from the hospital, at the nearest point. And he wasn't found at the nearest point, but they don't know for sure where he entered the water. It was also frozen over, at least in parts. It's supposed, we would think that it would have been completely frozen over by that point, because there was a lot of ice fishing going on at that time. So I don't know, I don't know. I don't know how that would have been possible. Maybe it was. And there's another theory that he actually entered a different body of water that flowed, that would have been the Boardman River, that would have flowed into Grand Traverse West Bay. But that's where he was found. He was found in Grand Traverse Bay, the West Bay, not the East. And right behind he was found actually at the Marina. He had floated underneath a dock in Clinch Park Marina. And when this news came out, then this information came out about how the police had been actively searching for them, which was completely untrue, unfortunately. They didn't seem to care at all. And then they immediately have this, it was an accidental death, and I don't know if they looked into it at all. I mean, I have very crucial information, and actually not just myself, but I've told several other people, so just in case anything happened to me, the information doesn't go away. Then they would know, present that to the police. But I have very crucial information to that investigation, and unfortunately the captain, the police captain, wasn't really interested. I talked to him one day on the phone. He had the great misfortune of being the only one left there at the end of the day, and so I was sent to his I was transferred to him, and I talked to him, and I told him a little bit about how impossible what he had been told, the story that they had been told, I told him how that would not have been possible. It wouldn't have been possible. And the fact that he would have had the wallet, and the fact that, you know, I mean, there were several things. There's a whole other thing about the fact that they had already admitted his clothing. They'd already itemized, inventoried, that's the word, inventoried his clothing. And we know that because they gave the clothing back to the family. And so the wallet would have been with the clothing and everything else that was in that bag that they gave back to the family. The wallet would not have been kept separate, and he would not have been allowed to hang on to it. And it just seems like you know, I'm sorry. I have such a hard time communicating, but I mean, most people who have ever stumbled across my videos know that I have autism. I might have that in the title, I don't know, but it just makes it really hard for me. So it's hard for me to speak and communicate clearly sometimes, and this is definitely one of those times. But I have a lot of information about the logistics of how the things that they thought could happen, or the things that they thought happened, the alibi, or whatever you call it, the hospital gave, not alibi, but the story that the hospital gave as to how he would have been able to have gotten away, and the fact that he would have had his wallet, and that he would have gone out for a smoke break. It's totally untrue. I mean, it's totally not. It couldn't happen like that. It doesn't ever happen like that. It could not happen like that. I have my own theory, which I'm not going to say here, but I've told those other people too. It's out there. But I talked to that captain, and I tried to explain to him that I had some very critical information, and not just information, but I have a vital piece of evidence, an actual recorded phone call with a man who claimed to be this victim. His name was Jeremy, who claimed to be this missing man. And he said he was fine and nobody needed to look for him or worry about him or anything. He called me. He called me because I left a message at a place I thought, maybe he's actually, here. I was doing a little bit of sleuthing, amateur investigation work. So I made this phone call. I thought, I wonder if he's there. And it was at the hospital. I thought, maybe he's still there. Maybe this is why they're saying, well, he's not really missing, because they knew he was still at the hospital, on the psych ward. Well, somebody from the psych ward, it had to be one of the staff members, called me back pretending to be Jeremy, whom, based on the autopsy reports, was already dead by that point. This man called me back pretending to be Jeremy, saying he was fine and that I shouldn't worry about him. That, you'd think the cops would want to hear that. He wasn't interested. They just weren't interested. And I don't know if it's because they had a lot to hide. I don't know if it's because I have no credibility in their minds. That's the way people treat people who have, at least around here, that's the way they treat people who have any affiliation with CMH. And in fact, that's the way a lot of the CMH workers, or some of the CMH workers, treat their clients. And I don't know. But here I've got this evidence. And like I said, I've got like 6 other people, not all of them even in this state, who also have it, just in case something happened to me. So it's not like harming me would make this evidence go away. It'll just bring it more to light. But I'm frustrated because the cops never seemed to care. They never seemed to care. And this family doesn't have any idea, I don't think they have any idea that their son was in the custody of the hospital. They had custody of him. He was in their custody. They don't just let somebody run off. They don't. I mean, you are watched like a hawk. So, I mean, I've been in the clutches of the ER before, though, and I don't know if you've seen some of my earlier posts. I had some horrible, well, I had one really, really, really horrible experience in the ER. I also had another time, and this was like in 2009, where I ticked off a doctor. I had just attempted suicide. I had just been betrayed bitterly by my mother, and I had attempted suicide. I was so distraught. I tried to drive my car into a tree. Well, I was taken to the, I ended up driving onto a snowbank and just teetering there. I was taken to the hospital. I was so distraught at this betrayal and cruelty by my mother that I was pounding on the walls just in agony, and that ticked off a doctor there. And so she came in, she ended up having me taken, she ended up having me locked down, strapped down. Sorry, I'm struggling with my words. But she had me strapped down. She had me injected with I don't know what. And when I woke up, I was downstate, 5 hours, 6 hours downstate in Kalamazoo. She'd sent me to Kalamazoo State Hospital, and that is a horrible place. All they do is punish. It's, that's what she did to me, and then that's what they do to everybody down there. So I guess I'm not going to say any more about it right now, but I've just sort of held my tongue in terms of the cops, but it needs to be looked into, and they seem to have no interest in finding out what really happened to Jeremy. They don't seem to care at all. They have not shown any desire to find out what happened to him, or to even look for him when he went missing. They didn't seem to care at all. He was a 35-year-old Native American man, and I think, if he had been a young blonde Caucasian American pretty girl, I think they probably would have looked a lot harder. That's my own thought. I don't know that that's true, but I feel like I owe this guy something, because I do care and because I do have this information. But as usual, I have something to say, and there's nobody here who cares to hear it. It's the same story over and over and over and over again. That part of Traverse City, I do not like. The part where the professionals here and the officials here don't care. Don't care to hear, don't want to know, don't take you seriously, don't protect the vulnerable. I guess that's it for now. So hopefully I'll be able to, get on here more frequently. It's somewhat therapeutic, but it's so hard for me to to find my words. So just bear with me, please. And thanks. I hope all my friends out there are doing well. I hope you're all doing well out there, and I'm doing pretty well. Just, I'm doing better than I was, 6 months ago. So that's it.